rolling.
Ta-da.
All right, I think we're live, guys. How many people do we got?
Somebody will tell us.
It shows 0 on my side, but I know I'm talking
9
in the chat.
I got 9.
All right, we're ready to go now. I'll start it off, guys. I'm Brian from Arrowhead Garage, doing a 67 Pontiac Firebird 400 coupe, and then this guy over
that way over here. That guy. Well, my name is John. The Vinyl Village Garage, John. I build Firebirds. This is one I did about 6 years ago. This is a 68 bird convertible with my dad, or what's left of it. I ordered a massive amount of sheet metal, so I'll be doing a lot of videos on that course just the same. But then at some point, it will get to paint. So what we're going to discuss this evening will be helpful, but I'm a little bit off from getting to that point. There's that guy on the bottom down there.
Yeah, I'm Mike from Lake and Lodge Garage. I just recently went through paint. A few months ago, I was dealing with that knee deep, and learned a lot about chemistries these days. I haven't painted a car since, I guess, the early 90s. So things have changed a lot. So I learned a lot, and really, really happy with the chemistries that are available today compared to then.
Sure.
Louis is joining us on the chat.
Well, how about that? There's Louis.
Louis.
All right, who else do we have in the chat today? VHP 454, Richard Dub, or is it Doob? Dub or Doob?
Yeah.
He's
in Canada, I know.
So, yeah. Jim and Kelly.
Gus is with us. Lisa is with us.
Lisa's here. Cool.
She had a question, actually. She hit me offline. How to remove overspray from the engine bay.
Ooh.
So since we're talking about paint tonight.
Yikes. I don't have a good answer to that because that under hood paint stuff isn't
what is that, Mike?
I don't know what's in these damn things, but they will strip paint. So
all right.
I learned about these from inkjet, and like we would get cured, UV ink onto a printer and stuff. As long as it wasn't there for a very long time, that would wipe it right off. Same thing with overspray. Yeah, it's Gojo hand wipes.
Well, heck, I need to try that because I got a little overspray on my subframe on one of the cars that I built, and I'm like, I don't want to any chemicals. It's going to basically wipe that stuff off for the most part. So
I don't know what it is about these things, but for overspray and weird stuff like that, they work great.
Mike, show us that again.
Sure.
Gojo fast towels.
Yeah, they're just hand wipes.
Okay. Give that a shot.
They're moistened wipes. They're just they work good on your hands too, but after I see them strip paint, I'm not so sure I want to use them on my hands. But be a little careful with them because a little bit of a grinder spark, they'll take off.
Oh,
really now?
Oh, yeah.
Can you do a demonstration?
No. But yeah, that's what I use, Lisa. I just, it works for me. As long as the overspray hasn't been on there for months or whatever, as long as you're hitting it fairly recent, it works.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's good to know. Well, my stuff may be too cured up. Maybe too cured, but I might try it anyway. That's interesting. Well, I guess what Mike was saying, obviously the chemistry has changed a whole lot in paints. Now, in the time that I've been messing with it, lead is gone. Some of the other stuff has changed. The chemicals and what's available, they're always updating. And I've kind of been a PPG fan. I still like it. I just got to get a second job now to pay for it. I still use a lot of the clear coats and some of the stuff, but I wish that I could say I keep using 100% of their products, but I haven't. But even with saying that, we're going to talk about paint tonight or this evening. This car here behind me, it's going to be stripped down to bare metal. So I guess we should probably start at the base of stuff.
Yeah.
On top of bare metal, it was always taught, the self-etching primer was the magic stuff, acid etch primer. That was, let's call that the older technology. I've never used it. I've never touched it. I'm sure it probably did what it was supposed to do. But one thing that's really important to know about the old self-etching primer is it doesn't seal the metal. It does a great job of bonding in a base layer. But if you were to leave a car in self-etching primer, it will rust.
Right.
Now, epoxy primer, on the other hand, seals out moisture. It's a great foundation. It's a little more, it's a commonly used now. That's one of the biggest differences between the two primers, and you cannot mix them. Do not put epoxy primer over top of self-etch. It will never really cure. It won't bond, and you'll have problems. So just keep all that in mind. So we're starting at our base. And the other thing, go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I would add to that is just get the EDP off it.
Yeah.
So, don't trust anything that's on that car unless you really, 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 really trust it. Get it down to bare metal. The inside panels, that's fine, whatever. But I've stripped EDP and found rusty fingerprints underneath it.
Yep.
So, I'm with Jonathan on this. I first thing I do is I actually block sand my EDP. Because it's like a first good test of what you got going on. And if you have any more metal work to do, you want to do a little bit of hammer and dolly work to fix a ding here or there, just block sand your EDP. You'll know right away whether you got a ding here, ding there. And then once I'm done with that step, I just strip it and hit it with epoxy.
Yep, absolutely. Now it comes an argument still, even the metal prep. So an acid bath you put on there. If you sandblast it, normally just clean the metal and go right to epoxy. I'm not going to tell you not to use acid wash or metal prep. I've done it both ways. I've not had adhesion problems, but if the metal is older, not new, I'd probably acid wash it just because you may have some microscopic rust or corrosion that you don't see. But again, I don't always use that. And then where I was going to go next is chemicals change or chemistry change, body filler on top of bare metal or not. It's an age-old debate. I'm the kind of person I'm going to put epoxy first, then put my body filler on top of that. And the biggest reason, what I've been told, now I haven't proven this, but what I've been told, older body filler had anti-corrosive properties in it. So you could put it directly on bare metal and actually did a pretty nice job. But with everything and the chemical changes, they removed that stuff from body filler. So putting on top of bare metal still isn't an absolute no, but it's not the same as it was years ago. So if you already get a chip in your paint, well, that body filler is almost like a sponge. You're going to put it right onto that bare metal. I'd rather have that base layer of epoxy and then build on top of it, and it will bond fine your body filler on top of epoxy primer.
Yeah. And that's another thing about epoxy, though, is make sure if you've had epoxy on there for a few days, you got to scuff it before you do anything to it, because Mr. Fireman there, Roger, he just went through a nightmare on a Jeep he was painting where he kept putting top coats over epoxy primer, and it would just peel right off with tape, just like a sheet. So you got to make sure you got a tooth in it, even for filler,
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be prepped.
Yeah. And I always go, when I put the metal, do the epoxy, then I'll do my body filler, and I inevitably burn through, right? I'm not good enough to not burn through. So
it's going to happen.
It's always going to happen. And when I'm done my body filler, I'll just go around and spot it with epoxy again, anywhere there's bare metal, and I will spot over the filler because I want it sealed right up nice. And, it's just a preference I do. There's 1,000 different ways to do this. Everybody has a different way. But, the bigger thing that I had to get used to with this newer chemistries was just finding out what's compatible with what, and and that's part of the reason why I chose Summit, because the Summit paints are all made by the same source. They're all compatible with each other. The epoxies right up through the urethane primers and the urethane coats. It's hard to beat a single source like PPG or whatever. As long as you can get it all from the same brand, the chances are it's going to all work together.
It's going to work well. Right.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is lay a coat on and see it start to pucker up and craze on you. I mean, that's a nightmare.
Yep. Yeah, that's one of the biggest things around the problem, mixing of the brands, especially never mix a reducer from one brand to another brand of paint. That's
or an activator.
Don't do that. The chemistry isn't the same. If you're going to do one brand of primer versus one brand of base, one brand of clear, probably okay, but never mix brands or reactors or reducers. So,
the activators are scary. I come from a UV printing world, so inkjet printing, and it's scary. Like if somebody tries to put a different ink in their system and the two inks aren't compatible, it will solidify the entire machine, turn it into a $500,000 brick.
Anchor.
I've seen it over and over again.
Dang it.
Yes.
You see that comment from John?
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
One?
Does Summit offer underbody epoxy in color or other than black?
Other than black?
They offer gray, white, and black. And I use both white and black. So when I'm doing the initial body, I'll do it in black. Then I'll put a lighter primer over that so I can see when I'm sanding the primer if I get down to the black. When I'm all done my body work, or before I do like the final primer on it, I'll do a seal coat in white, because if I get through that primer and I start to see white, I just try to pick contrasting colors between my primers and my epoxies.
Sure. Yeah. Give you an idea where you're at. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I see white, I stop. I'm just not good enough to do. I don't have enough experience doing this to just know I'm looking at primer or epoxy, right? If I without a color change.
See the color change.
Color.
Yeah.
Well, I do the similar thing mixing my body color. Sometimes I used to have the red and the blue hardener. I would do kind of the same idea when I mix up my body filler. So I had different colors. Like I would burn back through, like I'm back to my other base color. So I need to stop sanding. So same idea. So you get an idea where you're at.
So VHP 454 says, I use a skive coat over my primers. I don't know what that is. I will look that up.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Unless he meant seal coat.
Skive coat, yeah.
I do a seal coat over the primers too. After I'm done the body work, right before paint, literally like still in the chemical bond phase, like hours, not days. Mm-hmm. I'll do a seal coat, just a thinned out slightly with acetone, epoxy, and let her eat.
That's the thing. You're talking about layers. Now, we already talked about going to bare metal. Our base is going to be, sounds like the group here is saying epoxy. I'm going to agree with that. We'll hit with epoxy. And then you're going to do your body work. And then you're going to do some type of a high build primer. There's many different flavors. There's many different kinds. Yep. I've experimented with a couple of them. I'm going to get the chemistry wrong, but one's the polyester or polyester,
yep.
I think.
Polyester, yep.
There's one, but basically shrinkage. That's the problem. The stuff shrinks. That's all there is to it. The polyester stuff doesn't shrink as much, supposedly, but you're going to work a little harder sanding it back off. Now, if you're going to use a dark color car, I'd probably go that route. Now, I did use Z-Chrome, which was Rust Defender, which they have some really good stuff, but it's a dated product by some people's point of views. I used it on the Great Pumpkin and absolutely love the stuff. It sanded pretty good. That car still looks fantastic. Now it's only 2 years old, 2.5, 3 years old. It's not that old yet, that car, but it still looks really, really nice. Some of the other primers I've always struggled with the shrinkage or sand marks coming back through in the past from using the PPG high build primer. I don't remember what that one was actually listed as, but I always had a problem 3 to 4 years later where I started seeing some marks coming through. So that's why I was experimenting with different types of high builds. So
yeah,
so that's gonna be
use the Evercoat Super Build primer, the 4-to-1 Super Build. You're literally you're literally spraying Bondo. You're spraying body filler. You gotta spray that through a massive gun and get it smooth. If it's going on orange peel, you're gonna pay.
It's gonna work.
You're just gonna work your ass off for it. It does work good, and it does put a little bit of a coating on there, enough so that when you block sand, you know what you're into. Mm-hmm. But looking back on it, I would have thinned it out a little bit just because it came out too rough, and it cost me a lot of time.
Right. I used the Evercoat product on the Mockingbird. It was hard to get it to lay out smooth.
Yeah, it's very hard.
It comes out like syrup. I even tried a 2.0 tip on the gun, and I messed with the pressure, and it just didn't lay real smooth. So it sanded nice after hours of sanding, but I really had to work at it. But the finished product, car looks great now, but I had to work at it.
I did like the color change aspect of it too. That was kind of neat, but
it's kind of built-in guide code. Now, I guess we're going to talk about paint. We said epoxy, body filler, high build, and there's the question we're talking about that skim coat is there's different kinds of guide coat. It was always buddies of mine back then, black rattle can paint misted on the car. I tried that and I ruined so much sandpaper, it clogged it up. I hated that style, okay? I started using the powder, the graphite type stuff, and I fell in love with it. And I've not had any bonding problems. It does a great job. I'm not plugging up my sandpaper, so that's just my personal preference. I like that stuff. There's a few brands out there, I understand, but I like using the dry coat as a versus.
And you can get it in different colors now too.
That's even better. I didn't know. I've always been the black, but
yeah, they got black and white. I saw your show. I saw your episode on that and said, yeah, I'm. I went with the powder on that too. I'm just like, we're not. I've used the spray-on guide coat for some stuff, but you're right. It's just why bother, right? You might as well just take a spray bomb with some enamel and hit it.
But maybe the real actual spray guide coat does better than regular black paint, but I determined I wasn't going to mess with it again.
And we've been using the Duragold powder.
Exactly. When I started doing the cut and buff on the Clearcoat, after I had done it, of course, I got some comments on my page about you should try guide coat to do your cut and buff, and I'm like, really? And I had a couple other little jobs I had to do, and I tried it. It works really good for picking out any scratches when you're trying to do the, I did my enamels, not my enamels, my urethane paint. Then I did a couple coats of candy and then a couple coats of clear. By then I had some fairly substantial orange peel. So I cut it all down, just did a quick cut with it, got it smooth again, and then shot a flow coat. Now, I'm not good enough to make a flow coat perfect either, but I'll tell you what, cutting that flow coat down was a ton easier than doing it before. Right. So I do recommend that too. That was an easy way to go.
I might try that next year. Normally what I've done in the past is when I first cutting and buffing on a car, jumping ahead to the clear coat, but I'll go ahead and hit it dry, no wet at all. You can watch all the orange peel level off, and I can kind of gauge when I just about leveled it off, and I jump to a lighter grit, and then I start going to wet paper. But I'm going to try the guide coat. Yeah, I'm going to try the guide coat. So.
I did that too, though. It's easy to do that with like a good DA with a a dust-free DA, and I cut it down with that first to like 800, and then went for it with the block.
Cool. Well, so we've got as far as our high build primer. There's many flavors or choices. I said I think polyester is what I try to go with now. I've had less problems with it. And then Mike had mentioned the sealer coat. I use the same epoxy, reduce a little bit of acetone. But the sealer coats, there's a magic to the sealer coat. Now, you can put a sealer coat down, but it's really meant to go on literally right before you paint it. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't seal it up and then you come back, but you have to scuff the whole thing down and then redo a sealer coat. Now, there's some yays and nays, pros and cons about whether you should do that or not. A sealer coat does a few things. One, it's going to make a uniform base all in one color, but also promotes really good bonding of your base coat at additional stages. But if your car isn't going, so you got your body work all done, all your high build primer, you're going to have some thin spots in it. You might hit with some epoxy if you can't paint it immediately, but you really should probably scuff it again. You could directly go to base coat, but I've never done that. I've always gone body work, sealer, base coat, clear coat. Or in Brian's case, he may be going some single stage, some old school stuff. So, but a solid color, no reason why you couldn't go single stage.
Yeah, I agree. When you're hitting that seal coat, you want to be ready to paint in hours. They say you might have 48 to 4 or 5 days of chemical bonding time. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. Hit it. When you're doing that seal coat, be ready to paint. That's the key. Otherwise, you're scuffing.
Okay, cool. How about that?
Bowtie Classic says, "Hey guys, wanted to ask: is it true that Summit paints are manufactured by Sherman-Williams?"
That's what I've been told.
I can't prove it, but I've been told the same thing.
Yeah. And this week I got my my little thing here.
Your little card.
My little card of all the colors.
This guy.
Oh snap! Yeah. Hey, do they sell? Let's see if I get somebody angry here. Do they sell Hugger Orange?
They've got a orange. They don't call it Hugger Orange.
How about they call it Carousel Red?
Yeah. But they've got a decent selection of colors. The other thing I like about their colors is you can blend them. As long as you keep the recipe, you can blend a few shades to get what you want. That's what I did. I mean, I ended up blending a little bit of graphite with the metallic orange. Mm-hmm. Then I did a couple coats of candy on top of that. But it all depends on what you want to do, right? I mean, the look you're looking for and everything else. And honestly, I've used this stuff as just single stage without any clear. It works fine. It's good looking paint.
Nice. Well, I used on the Great Pumpkin. PPG guy could not help me with getting that autumn bronze paint color mixed up. He says he didn't have the way to mix it. He didn't have the instructions and couldn't do it for me. A little disappointed. Hoping they could help me out. I have a friend that owns a body shop. They use Sherwin-Williams products. And he said, I can get you that color. He did a spray out for me. I checked the inside of the trunk. I mean, it was almost perfect, spot on to the original color. The metallic flake was a little different size, but whatever. Loved how that stuff sprayed. The Sherwin-Williams Basecoat. I actually really, really liked it. Now, it was still a little spendy, but it worked fantastically. And that car just looks great out in the sunlight and driving it. So I'm very happy with the Sherwin-Williams product, at least the Basecoat. I'm not sure about the rest of their paint system, but if it's what Mike used on his car, it probably isn't bad stuff at all. I know the Basecoat, I can vouch for that. It's some good stuff.
Yeah. The thing, I don't know if this is, like I said, I haven't really shot a car since the mid 90s, but I will say that this urethane paint sprays nice. I mean, if you're paying attention, it's like I had one run that really fought me, but it had it kind of sagged on the base coat, so it caused me a bunch of problems. I wasn't fighting runs like I would have expected. This stuff lays on nice, it gels up quick, gives it just enough time for that mosquito to land on it. Little kamikaze run there. But I'm pretty impressed with the chemistries. I spent a lot of time watching Jonathan, watching a lot of people do this stuff, and it's.
I'm no expert. I get by. That's what I call it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I certainly. What I did, I put a lot of layers on this thing, but I did it to be safe because I knew I didn't have quite the skill level needed to just nail it the first time. So everything I did was safe.
How many coats did you use, Mike?
Oh, Christ. I don't even know. A lot.
How much did you spend?
That's the other thing that I have to say about Summit. It's not that expensive. I mean, they have a very reasonably priced paint. Even with the activators and all. I mean, Brian, you're looking into that now, but
yep.
Like a gallon of their paint's not ridiculous.
It's like what, $100 a gallon?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you can get gallons and quarts.
Yep. Well, are you sitting down for this? The base coat for the pumpkin was a gallon of the autumn bronze, Sherwin-Williams. I think with the reducer was $700.
Jesus.
For the base coat.
What?
Wow.
Uh-huh. Oh, I know.
Wow.
And then even I'm going to try to get some cameo white. It was a little spendy, so I went a different way. I won't ever tell my secret, but I didn't spend that much again. But cameo white, which is a common color, the local guy was like, I think the PPG guy was like $900 for a gallon. I'm like, I can't do it. I love it, but I can't do it. The Deltron stuff, really like it, but I just couldn't do it. So.
Man.
Oh yeah, I remember Emron paint. Oh my God, that stuff was spendy back then. My dad got a brand new paint job on his conversion van, and I managed to launch a 3-wheeler right up over the front of it. He was not very happy with me.
No, I can tell.
All Emron paint.
Yeah, Emron might have been. I know I've heard of it, but I never messed with it. So
Yeah, it was like a real high-end enamel, super hard, very nice. But geez, it was back then. That was top dollar.
That was
Now,
the
John,
big bucks.
you said it took a gallon to paint the pumpkin,
The pumpkin. Yep.
and then Mike, you said about a gallon and a half.
Yeah, but I did all the interior panels, inside, outside. I went stupid with it.
Gotcha.
Now the pumpkin, I only did like 1.5 coats on the roof of the base coat just to give it some color because it had a vinyl top.
Right,
so
right.
You got essentially, I still have a little bit left. It might have been enough to do the roof. I was doing a coupe, but I did the door jambs, inside of the trunk deck. I mean, I did like the whole car in the base color again, but that was basically 3 coats. A a light coat to kind of see how it hit, a medium coat, and a medium coat of color on that car. And a gallon would probably have done it if you're doing a whole color. But if you had any mistakes and had to sand it off, you may be running out of paint. So.
And I did the firewall, all the way down to the bottom. I did the interior, the fenders, the underside. I spent a lot of time on that. So I went through about a gallon and a half.
I think normally about a gallon would get you like one of these coupes done. You'd probably be safe. So. And that's the other thing talking about paint and temperatures. One of the things I've always thought is it's freaking cold. The air temp is one thing in your shop. 60 degrees and above is kind of the norm. I've been told that a little warmer would be ideal. But that's not just the air temperature, but the metal you're hitting that paint with.
That's right.
Check the temperature of the metal. Now, people in Arizona, they may have the opposite effect. It may be too daggum hot. It comes out as dust. Oof.
80 today. 80.
Yeah. Golly. I have a jacket on. It was like 45 today. So
we had the fan in the shop going in the garage.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's an excellent point, Jonathan. It isn't enough to have your shop cold, warm it up, and start painting. You got to make sure the whole car is up to temperature before you start painting.
I've been burned by that
really
before.
Important. Really important.
I had a huge problem where the paint did not want to flow out. It just orange peeled all the beat heck, and I just couldn't get it to work. And the garage was warm. It was an old 64 Corvair I did years ago. But I just could not get that stuff to lay out. And I was like, wait a minute. I think then, I was a little younger then. Now I'm a little wiser. I figured out that it was probably just too daggum cold. So, you could add a lightning activator to the clear, but it just didn't want to lay out.
We may have to paint at night in Phoenix just for a cooler temp.
So VHP 454 said, I just painted a 69 Firebird. Total cost, including clear and buffing, no body work, was $2,300. That's very reasonable. You can't get that around here.
No. Yeah, they won't even touch a car for less than $7,000-8,000, even after it's almost ready to paint. So
and if you start adding candies and everything else, and interior panels, you're well over 10 grand. It's insane. I did it. I want to say probably all in on materials. I was probably a couple $1,000.
Yeah,
just materials using the Summit brand.
So John Kilborn says, how much paint if you want to paint the underfloor pan some color? So
I'd add another half gallon.
Right. The transparent rod, I painted the firewall, the whole underbody, inside of the trunk. Everything is cameo white. I ended up doing about a gallon and a half or a gallon and 3/4. So, but that was gallon and a half to maybe 2 gallons, depending on how big the car is. So I think he has a 64 Malibu. I think it is he's putting together. So.
Yeah, John, what are you putting together, Mr. Kilgore? Let us know.
I guess the point is, do you want to run out? No.
Not in the middle of the project. No.
No. So, you buy a gallon and a half if you think you need a gallon. You buy 2 gallons if you think you need a gallon and a half. That's kind of.
You mean you just can't call
it's a price of poker.
Send me another gallon?
Yeah, before that one dries.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Okay. I was wrong. It's a 65. I got the year wrong.
Nice.
I knew it was close.
Nice. Yeah. Those are cool.
I try to remember them all, but it's just a lot. Okay, it's a lot.
Oh yeah, cameo.
So we talked about all our flavors of paints up to our base coat. Now I've hit something up there with Brian. I said single stage. Now there's a difference between base coat, clear coat, and single stage. Now back when these cars were new, Clearcoat didn't exist. It was
Yeah,
all
it wasn't
single
a
stage
thing.
paint. And even the metallics were a single stage. And that was the thing. You couldn't cut and buff on that stuff. It would ruin the metallic. So that's why it looks a little different, like modern versus probably older paint. Now, there's advantages to both. And then, of course, obviously equally disadvantages. I'm a base coat, clear coat kind of guy. That was why I got learned on. That's what I started out with.
Same here.
Me
So
too.
that's I have done some single stage stuff. I will say my opinion on that. If it's a solid color with no metallic or any added anything in it, single stage would be fine because you still cut and buff it and make it look really nice. But if it's got metallics in it, and if you're not a
Yeah.
master painter, really good, I don't think I'd mess with single stage.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
You start cutting and buffing, it starts messing with the flake. You're going to see every place you sanded it. I just actually, what I've experienced myself, I've seen you can see blemishes that when we try to buff it out, it doesn't work. If you can lay out a super slick paint job and minor blemishes, you're probably fine. But you're painting at home in your garage with a bunch of dirt, and you don't be able to do no metallic paint job. So,
No.
on
I remember
stage.
when I was young, my uncle used to paint our race cars and stuff, and we would paint, and he could paint even with a solid color or a metallic single stage, because like you said, back then, Clearcoat wasn't a thing. He used to call it shine in a can when that finally came out. But, you know, he could lay out and paint a whole car beautifully, shut the lights out, go home next morning, come back, and it was dull. You know, you just lose the shine if all the conditions weren't just right. And Clearcoat
humidity goes bad.
Problem. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, humidity goes bad or temperature changes.
Yeah.
There's so many variables. So, yep. Yeah, because it says here, the Flambeau Burgundy is a metallic paint. So, yes, I'll be doing some base clear on that as long as I can find someone that can mix my Flambeau Burgundy. My buddy with the Sherwin-Williams a couple of years ago, I did the pumpkin. He said he thought he could, but I haven't heard back from him now. So I might have to do some shopping to find that color. It's an oddity, I guess.
There goes your inheritance.
yeah, I know.
Shit. Stay away from any brands of paint that you've tried and were just like never
hated it. That's a good question. I've used some stuff that's pretty inexpensive. Like I used to do touch up work on cars. Let's say like my Avalanche or your daily driver. I've used some really inexpensive stuff. The Wanda brand base coat, my local paint supplier, it actually sprays out pretty good. But one of their clears, it looked good when I first sprayed it, but 6 months later, it just kind of lost its luster. I used it to paint a 67 Le Mans I did years ago for a 16-year-old boy's first car. So I didn't use expensive paint for a reason, knowing he's probably going to crash it. It didn't look bad, but it just didn't have the shine like it was supposed to. It was that cheap, $150 clear stuff you throw on there, and it just put it. I don't remember the brand, but it was. Would I use one of these cars? No, but a daily driver, sure, why not? Because especially someone who's just starting driving, they're gonna trash it anyway. So.
An old beater plow truck or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep.
You don't know what those are, Brian. Plow trucks.
What's a plow truck, Brian? Can you draw me a picture?
Say it again.
You know what a plow truck is?
A plow truck?
Yeah, what's that?
Is that for like that white stuff that builds up in winter?
Yeah.
You go out, you take it out and knock over cacti.
Mm-hmm. That's probably illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, please don't do this at home.
Well, I was thinking of just going down to Tractor Supply and getting some implement paint.
You know what? I've seen people do it, man. My first car, my first 56 Chevy, I wanted to paint it red. And I went and got a gallon of International Red for like $30. Now, it was DuPont, but it was like $30 for International Red. Let her have it.
Let's go to town.
Yeah.
Going to town rig. It sounds like some. There's a feller who does that stuff on that one channel out there. He's going to town rig, and he does a lot of that. Tractor Supply paint. For cheap, and throws it on everything. So
yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, I guess it serves a purpose, but I don't think I'd use it. So.
Yeah, I'm
John
with you.
Kilborn wants to know about spray guns.
My first car, my spray guns.
Spray guns.
I've had really good luck with the Harbor Freight guns. I've tried them all. from the $15 Louis gun there that you drill out the tip right up through the
Purple power.
right up through the $200 Black Widow.
Yeah.
I find that mid-range one, it's silver with the spectrum with
Yep.
the silver with the blue
Yep.
handles
Yep.
works just as good as any of them.
Yeah.
I like that gun. I have two of them. I have an HVLP and the other one, what is it? What's that new one? There's HVLP and then
High volume, low pressure, is it?
Yeah.
EMP or something.
Yeah, I don't remember.
ELP, I can't remember, but
yeah.
that one is interesting. You got to run it a little different, but once you kind of get the hang of it, they both work equally good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a Mac Tool spray gun for years and it worked great, but I finally retired it and I bought something I found on the Amazon from someone suggesting it. But I'm going to say right now it's probably just the same as what you could have bought at the old Harbor Freight, you know. And I've been playing with the idea of going to those Black Widow guns, but I think you're telling me there's not really much difference between it and the other guns. So
it really isn't.
If I had a professional paint booth instead of a garage where I had dust control and everything else, trying to get that perfect finish,
right?
It might justify the $700, $800 gun if I was doing it every day. But no, I'm in a dirt palace, so we make do.
So John's asking about epoxy and priming. For epoxy, I'd like to use like the 1.7 tips, and the same thing with primers, 1.7. The heavy primers, like that super build stuff, you need the 2.2 or 2.1 tip, the one you drill out. You're laying it on with a fire hose. Yeah, the 2.0 modified. But and then I go to 1.3s when I'm dealing with a base coat or clears or candies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 1.4, I can't remember.
Yep. That's pretty much spot on. And again, with I think we've mentioned this once before, but maybe not this go around. But all your paint suppliers gives you a data sheet, and that'll tell you the temperature, the time, the tip size, how to reduce it if you want to use it for whatever purpose. So that stuff should be available. It's worth reading it. I know reading directions, but it's interesting what you can pick up on that stuff.
It's funny you bring that up because that is one of the driving reasons I ended up going with Summit, because they have online all of their data sheets and right down to what tip you should use, what pressure you should shoot at, all of that. And the other thing that's really nice about Summit is they give you a range of reducers and a range of activators for the temperature that you're shooting in. I know most people do that, but for me, it was very easily and well spelled out with the way Summit markets their product. I just thought it was a good job.
Oh, absolutely, and that it makes a big difference too. They know their product, so that's the thing. I hate to say it, reading the directions actually helps, but it actually does. So it says get a friend with a paint booth to use. Well, anyone want to be my friend that has a paint booth? So throw that out there.
I had to build one.
Yeah.
So this is the paint gun that I've been using.
Yep.
And it's $65, and it's one of those low pressure guns.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of like you were saying.
LVLP. Yeah.
It's kind of in the middle type thing.
Yeah, I think it's about what I've got. It looks like that. So.
But yeah, that's what. But other than that, I'm using the Harbor Freight purple gun with the tip drilled to 2.0 to do my primer.
Yeah, I've been using the Harbor Freights. And the other thing I really like about Harbor Freight now that's changed over the years are those disposable cups.
Oh yeah,
those things are the balls. I mean, it just saves so much time, and I keep like one cup set up with solvent in it, and I'll just throw that back on and use that to clean my gun, and then throw away the disposable cup. It makes such a difference. I know. I was, going to Harbor Freight pretty steady there for a few weeks, just buying every refill kit they had. But it saves on the gun and it saves on time because you're not going to run any nasty stuff through your gun if you do it right.
That's helpful. See, my very first gun was a Craftsman siphon feed gun. If you guys remember those vintage things, right? Now, I had I was in high school, 1987 Grand Am. This is before I had the Firebirds, right?
And
that was holy crap. Yeah, I don't remember. It'd been like 95-ish, somewhere around there. I had this car, And my brother bought me that paint gun for Christmas. Looked at him and I was like, "What's this for? I don't know how to use this thing. I don't know what I'm doing with that." And
You're
I was
about
like,
to
"Well,
find
so
out.
I learned real quick, and I actually got pretty decent with that old siphon feed gun. That was the first thing I started spraying with, and I did okay. Like fixing my buddies' cars, because we all thought we were ace drivers back then, bouncing it off everything. So they'd bring it to me, we'd load it full of Bondo, we'd squirt some paint on it, and I got pretty good at doing a little side work doing that. But that was what I learned on the old siphon
Yeah.
feed Craftsman. I said, if it wasn't
Yeah,
for
me
my
too.
brother buying me that crappy little gun, I may have never done this stuff. I don't know. I kind of wonder now. So.
Yeah, we used to always use those siphon feed guns, and my uncle actually had one that had a little impeller in the bottom of the can for metallics, and it was like a little air drive impeller. It would sit there and just constantly miss the metallics as you were painting.
I did.
Pretty cool.
Put marbles in it and kind of keep moving around because I didn't have a fancy gun like that. I just go, so,
Put some glass marbles in there. You're good.
There you go. Right. Oh, yeah.
Have any of you guys used any of those inflatable paint booths yet?
I haven't messed with one of those. They're pretty popular, but I don't know.
They are. People are using them in their garage. Just blow it up if they got the room. Put it in the garage.
I don't have the room.
I don't have the room either, but I tried.
If I did it in the backyard, I'm sure my neighbors would probably raise hell about that. So.
One time I did, would be all up in arms.
Oh yeah. There was one time I brought a big 185 compressor home from my work at, and my big sandblasting outfit, and I immediately blasted it in the garage. I don't know how I didn't get a call on that one, but I'll never do that again. That was the biggest, messiest mistake ever. I had sand throughout the house. So yeah, not gonna happen. I'll never do that again. I don't think I can get away with this inflatable
area out here behind the garage that I do for small sandblasting stuff. That's it.
I have I take a little spot blaster outside and do a little blasting, but that's not super noisy, and I don't like to big of a mess with that.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to sandblast with my little Harbor Freight gun, my cowl grill up top, and my little fender drop-offs in the front, little extenders, fender extensions. I'm gonna try to do all that instead of sanding them.
What kind of Harbor Freight gun? What Harbor Freight gun?
It has a little plastic box on top. You pour it in.
Okay.
So
I have one of those red canister Harbor Freight ones. It's like 20 a gallon. I don't know. And I fought with it. It's like, oh, you can sit there and, constantly fooling around with it. And I went online one day and I was just getting so frustrated with it. I'm like, I got to find a better unit. And I saw a guy on YouTube who took one of those rotating vibrator things and welded a plate to the back and bolted it to it. Never had a problem since. It just sits there and just shakes it a little bit the whole time it's working. And I'm like, sometimes the simplest answers, right?
Okay.
All right.
I'll do a piece on that at some point.
Yeah. About that.
Just a little rotating vibrator.
Yeah.
And for you guys watching, if you have not subscribed to Mike's channel, take a minute, jump over there to his channel, Lake and Lodge Garage, and subscribe. He's almost to 1,000. We want to get him to 1,000 really quick here. So take a minute and subscribe.
Creeping in on it.
Yep. It'll happen. Well, so we've covered all our base coat and our base, like I said, our epoxies, our build-up. I guess we're going to get into body, but we're just talking about paint guns. We talked about if you can do single stage, that's your choice, but base clear. Now clear coats, there's obviously many different flavors of that. I typically read magazines where they said they put like 8, 9 coats of clear on a car. I've never done that, and these stripes are on this car buried underneath the clear. I have essentially 4 coats of only on the stripes. The rest of the car has 3 coats of clear, and I've never personally had a problem burning through on cutting and buffing, but I'm not taking a whole lot of material off though. So I guess what's everybody's thoughts on that? How many coats of clear do you put on a car? I think 3 is sufficient, but someone tell me different.
I found that if I started going more than 3, I'd start to get a hazy look in it. It would stop becoming clear and started to have a little haze to it. But I'm with you. Like we should probably talk about burying stripes and burying decals too, because that's that's an art form in itself. And I went ahead, did 3 coats of clear, block sanded it, got it, scuffed down. So I was ready to go, put my decals on, then just cleared around the decals and over the top, just like you did with your blue stripe. And then you just wet sand in the edges and it just disappears. Right. Now, little things work great. Big things are a lot of sanding. So, that's a lot of work. But then a couple coats of clear after that, then a flow coat.
Yeah. Now you put was it vinyl graphics on the side of it? Yeah. Is that what that was?
Yeah, I did vinyl.
I've not been brave and tried to clear on top of vinyl yet. I just don't know, but
it works.
Yeah, I mean, I know people do it, but I just I haven't tried it yet.
So at the time when I was doing that, I was actually working for Avery Dennison, who makes the vinyl. I couldn't get Avery Dennison vinyl, or I couldn't get anybody to cut it. So finally I ended up with a roll of Avery Dennison that's still in my house because I couldn't get anybody to use it, and ended up with Oracal. But it just as long as you can get it on there without any bubbles or any weirdness, it'll bury just fine. You do want to make sure that if you do it with a sticker or a vinyl, that it's not a printed sticker. So that color has to go all the way through to the back, because if you get into that vinyl at all of a sudden it'll start going white if it's printed. So, if you got a printed product or something that's multicolor, you got to make sure you cannot get into that with the wet sanding. You got to make sure that you're only into the clear. You have no margin for error. Okay,
that's good to know. Because I've seen like the Rumblebee on Plymouth, I put buy the sticker or the printed out sticker and slap on the back. But we're just saying, careful when cutting and buffing. If you cut through that printing, you're back to base white vinyl. So
exactly. If you get through the clear, you will ruin it. So you got to make sure that if you think you're getting close on clear, put more clear on.
Well, that's what. That's what Richard said here. He said 4 if you're planning on doing some cutting and buffing, and 3 if not. So that was the question. He works up at a place that do a lot of high-end restoration. So I believe what he has to say. So that makes me feel pretty good. But when I watch them car shows sometimes, they're talking 7, 8, 9 coats of clear. I'm like, well, I ain't got that kind of money, and I guess I don't understand the why. Because I've also been taught through all this, the least amount of body filler and paint you put on the car, the more chip resistant it is. The more you stack on that car, it's more prone for damage from impact. So
it's the reason.
I try to put the minimal on it as best as I can. Well, 1, it's cheaper, and then 2, I'm thinking I'm driving this stuff. I like to put some miles on it. So I've got a broken windshield. I've got rock chips in front of this car, but that's part of driving the cars. So
it's part of it. Yep. Mike, how long did you wait until you started the cut and buff?
Well, it depends. So when I was doing the just the cut between coats, I just waited like 4 days. So when I cut it down to like 800 to do my flow coat, that was just like 4 days. But when I went to do the real cut and buff and get after it with all the compounds and everything, I think I waited 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah, I wanted it to be really hard, and it did fine.
Gotcha.
If I had my choice, the longer the better. But
longer is better.
Yeah, professional body shops don't have time for that. They don't. They got to turn and burn that car and get it out, and it's going to look good too right off the bat. But back to that shrinkage thing stuff. This stuff shrinks a little bit, so if you can let it sit a little bit longer, even all your undercoats are going to shrink a little bit. Then you could use that clear coat for a little bit of leveling compound, so you could remove some of your blemishes if you let it sit longer. So when I go to paint my high school car, which would be black, you best believe I'll probably base clear it and let it sit for 3 or 4 months before I actually probably cut and buff it, just because of that reason. I just, again, I'm not a master painter, but I know how to make it look as best as I can. That's what we're going to share here with you guys and gals, and maybe help you out with your ride. So.
Black is the hardest color to paint. It just, everything shows through on black. It just...
Well, that was the first car I painted was black. I did a bunch of touch-up work on fenders and doors and liquid courage accidents, from my buddies. But my very first car was my high school car. I went straight out black. It was PPG stuff in it, like we discussed. And even then, that was 20 years ago. And that car looked great. it didn't look bad, the stuff that I painted, but what was underneath it was trash. I mean, I had I can't flux core like what Louis does. I tried to flux core that car together. It had crappy welds, crappy Bondo work, so it needed to come off, but the paint still looked good on actually. So
yeah, that's it with black. Black shows all the sins. It shows all the body work. It's just
yep.
It's
I didn't know how to
hard.
do body work. I had those stiff sanding blocks, hard plastic. And I went at those rear quarters. I got them straight. It looked phenomenal, but I had so much time in building it back up, sand it back off, build it back up. So way too much time. So I wish I could find the pictures of that car when I built it. It was all my parents' backyard too, because they didn't have a garage. So every night I had to seal it up, sand it back off the next day, seal it up, sand it back off. So I learned the hard way how to do this stuff, the wrong way, right? So you get gooder with it with time. So.
Trying to think if we have any questions. Louis popping in and out in the chat when he can.
Yep. Yeah, Louis got a little plug there for Harbor Freight products. He does. Actually talks about the guns and how they work and different tips and everything. So.
Yep.
And he was talking to Lisa this week about buying the gun. And Lisa went to Harbor Freight today, bought the purple gun, and is going to do the drill.
Drill it out.
Yep. The bored out drill. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That works. It's really good for thick primers.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about, of course, you mentioned the darker the color, black being in particular, it's going to show all your blemishes. And then typically the reverse would hold true. The lighter the color will hide some of that stuff. So if you're not an expert at bodywork, or if you don't really care about your original color, maybe pick something that's lighter in color to help hide your blemishes.
Like tan?
Or if you want to, what color?
Like tan?
Yeah, tan. Yeah, I guess you could. So it is something to keep in mind. But here's the thing about painting, right?
Is tan in here?
Oh, Summit, right?
A buddy of mine is a state trooper, and he said the one color that he never looks at or worries about are tan colored cars.
Well, that's because it's camouflage in your area.
You can't see him. That's great. Yeah.
I was
tan. Tan and white. Go tan and white. You go for it.
If you're basing your color choice on what gets pulled over most often or least often, I think you got to rethink that.
Nope.
Nothing wrong with me.
No, don't look my way.
I
was gonna say, when it comes to like painting stuff, right? Now we're assuming that we're all building our own cars in our own garage or shop or whatever we're going to be working in. I learned how to paint cars by learning how to paint primer. Primer's a little more forgiving. You're going to sand it off. So build your confidence by spraying primer. And like Mike said, if you can get that super thick mayonnaise to come out and lay slick, well, you learn how to get that gun dialed in. You learn how to make it work. So learn your processes from the very beginning with the primer. And you're most likely going to sand off if you made a mistake. So that's how I learned to paint, was learning to paint with primers. And then I got a little more confidence. I think I did some, Basecoat, Clearcoat stuff, and I kept growing my abilities. And then you get more like metallic paint, like your car. Metallics really the car needs to be assembled if you're going to paint it. I see shops, somehow they do it. They have a fender over here, the door over there, and somehow they paint metallics, and maybe they get it to look all the same color, but the secret to a metallic paint job is the pressure, the temperature, how far you hold the paint gun, the mix of the paint that day will change the color of metallic paint. So I would strongly suggest, if you're going to do metallic, assemble the car. I know it's a pain in the butt, but you're really going to be happier with the finish. So I tried to get with Oldsmobile, 56 Oldsmobile. I used to go to car shows with. There's a light metallic blue, and he painted it in pieces. Had the fender laying horizontal instead of up and down. Had the door over here, hanging up, but it wasn't assembled. Put the car all together, and it's different colors of blue. And he goes, "Why is that?" I said, "Did you paint it assembled?" "No." He showed me pictures of it. The door is this way, and the fenders like. You got to get it all pointing the same direction. It's going to be on the car, so it looks natural. So I'm going to throw that out there, kind of a curveball. Probably should have brought that up before, but metallic paint, try to assemble the car and paint it assembled.
Here's a good question. John Kilborn says, John doesn't wet the floor. Do the rest of you do some or wet, hold the dust down?
I wet the floor.
I did something. I was always taught to wet the floor too, but then I what John says has merit. You know, having that amount of moisture in the room,
Humidity
you know,
will screw
that's
things
not
up.
a good thing. So what I did, which was, you know, maybe overkill, is I went out to Home Depot, bought a roll of Ram board, the stuff they use to protect hardwood floors when you're building a new house. I laid that out on my floor. I taped it off, rolled my car in, and that stuff worked really good. It clung, anything that hit the ground did cling to it. And it wasn't dusty. I never did wet it down. So I found that over a concrete floor worked quite good for me.
And the biggest problem is the newer, like the whole chemical composition stuff. Newer paint don't like humidity. It doesn't like moisture. You'll cause it to haze. It was an old school thing. Yeah, absolutely used to wet the floor down. Used to do some other things like tie a chain to the body somewhere so it would ground the car so you didn't have a static problem. I've never done that. I've read a lot of old timey stuff, but I haven't used a lot of the techniques. But the only thing I did pick up on was to say don't wet the floor anymore because the humidity is bad. Now, you still have to control dust like Mike mentions. You want to try to keep it down, but I normally lift the car way up anyway because I'm tall. I don't like climbing on the floor. And I keep it away from the floor, so I'm not blowing a lot of air towards the floor to stir the dust up anyway. So that's kind of my dust control. I'm really surprised me. I mean, those who've seen these cars I paint, they actually look, I'm going to say, really good for a garage paint job. Very minimal or no blemishes when I'm done. And that's the reason why, though, probably, because of the things that we're doing in prep to prevent problems.
Except for the mosquito.
Damn mosquitoes. No. My high school car, you say this, right? I had no garage. Right? I made a little lean-to in the backyard before the inflatable booth, plastic, and 2x4s, and a box fan. I put plastic on the floor, cranked the fans on the floor, got sucked up to the bottom of the car because it was moving too much air. But I thought I'd paint it at night. That was a brilliant idea in Indiana, right? So I get done putting that Clearcoat on, car's looking really good, feeling great about it, and moth lands right in the middle of the roof. Oof. Those things are dusty little bastards. It ruined that paint job. It was so mad.
Yeah.
So, but it was in the middle of the roof, so yeah, I buffed it out. I made it work. So
I painted a CJ Jeep outside one time for a buddy of mine. I'm like, you know, there's going to be some big old June bug doing a backstroke in the middle of this hood.
Yep.
Not a blemish, not a bug in it. I don't know how it happened, but I don't know. We were just living right that day, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's why I try to paint early spring because the bugs ain't out yet, right? And your temperature's up. So I normally try to hit that window to paint for kind of that reason because the critters, the bugs are awful around here. So
yeah.
Out here in Arizona, we have to deal with dust.
Yeah.
So it's every day when I go out to work on the car, I fire up my leaf blower and just blow the entire garage out.
Before you paint, roll the car out, like Jonathan said, just, you know, get as much dust out of the garage as you can, blow the walls off, blow the ceilings off, you know, get it moving, get it out of the building. It will cling to everything, especially if you're doing body work in there at the same time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got yeah. Did you see the house filter for our furnace? I can't imagine why it's so dusty out here because my furnace is there here in the garage, so it seems to plug up the filter very frequently. And when I do body work, they loathe that because that smell of body filters goes through the whole house.
Yeah. House.
Oh yeah, like really? Knock it off! I'm like what? So,
that's the way I keep visitors down. I keep the visitors down out here by just doing welding or body work or something. You know, it stinks. Okay, see ya.
Hey, Ice Spider Garage just joined us.
Yeah, I see that.
Cool. Now, in scorpions, Wilder 9, you got to watch out for scorpions. You start working on the car, next thing you know, there's one of these little creepy crawly things with that little stinger waiting for you.
Saying hello.
We just got bears here.
Bears? Bears.
I went out the door one day last fall, came nose to nose with a big old black bear right in my driveway, like 8 feet away from me. I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, so which ones are the bad ones? The brown bears or the black
brown
bears?
Brown bears. Black bears are, unless you get them cornered and there's cubs involved, they're beating feet.
Okay. I can't remember. We don't have that problem out here in
Yeah.
Indianapolis, so we don't got that. Now we get like
No bears?
no bears. We get bald eagles. That's all we got. So
Yeah, we got eagles too.
mm-hmm.
We got a few of
Yeah,
those.
paint fumes. Yeah, I've killed the house with paint fumes too. I normally pick a day when the kids are all at school and the missus out at work, and that's when I paint. You know, so
Lose a couple brain cells.
yeah. Ask Whitney about that. So she loves when I paint.
Whitney says brown bears act dead.
That means you act dead. Okay, yeah. Brown bears act dead. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Kilborn says we have black cats. Yeah, we have black cats too. We have cats, tiny kitty cats.
Change the filter. We haven't talked about air supply at all. I know we touched on it a couple weeks ago. You know, there's a lot of, you don't want water in your air. You got to get the water out, and there's a lot of really high dollar traps and dryers and things you can buy.
Yeah.
I actually, like I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Some of you remember this, but I saw an episode from Mr. Fireman, and when he's doing his Camaro, and he just took a transmission cooler, mounted it to the back of his compressor, ran the plumbing from the output of the pump directly into that, through that, and then a water trap before it went into his tank. I did the same thing. I've never had a water problem since. None whatsoever. It's crazy how good that worked. It's super cheap.
Yeah.
Super cheap.
Took some one of those fancy line dryers for like $500 or $600. It works great, but I wish I would have probably done the $50 hack instead. So
yeah, it took some work, and you want to use copper line because that thing gets hotter than a cannon. But you got to. What is best for airline to use?
I think it's 3/8 rubber, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I've been using.
Yeah, there's a lot of different grades to airlines now. And even like if your shop is plumbed up like this one is with, I think it's a PTFE product. But that's a very, very broad topic. But yeah,
Jim,
I will do a video on that coming up.
Jimmy Kelly wants to do a video on that one.
Once that boat's out of there and I can actually see the compressor again, I'll do that.
Any other ideas for the folks who are looking to paint?
Candies. I have some experience with candies now, which I'd never done before. Candies are tricky. It's a clear coat, but it's not. You got to lay it on super smooth. You got to treat it like a metallic. You got to make sure that your coverage is super even and you have the exact amount of coverage, overlap, same amount of coats. Every time you put a coat of candy on, it changes the color just a little bit more each time. It's not like you shoot it once and that's it, and then you're just getting more coverage like a clear. It's actually changing tone as you go. So I did it with spray cards. I sprayed out like a bunch of different colors and cards and just tried different things until I got the look I wanted. But you got to stick to that. And if you got 3 coats on the front, you better have 3 coats of candy on the back at the same coverage, same layout, same pressures. Candies are tricky. Now, one thing I've seen recently that I want to try someday is people are mixing the candies with the base coat. So they're actually doing an application where they're mixing a candy and a base coat. Yeah, it kind of thins it out a little bit, but it builds up the gloss quicker. I think I'm going to try that. That was a Summit recommendation. They were also combining single stage with Clearcoat and spraying that as a combined source. So, you know, there's things you can do to try to get away from that and make it a little more idiot proof. But it's and yes, you can, Richard, you can definitely change the base coat under a candy is everything. I did a whole series on, I tried a bunch of different base coats, a bunch of different candies, just trying to find the color I really wanted. And that was a thing. It was a long process, but I sprayed those little plastic car things and, you know, it was worth it. I learned a lot.
You know, is it being that experience now? A lot of modern cars are gone to tri-coats, which is kind of a candy paint. So I've done some touch-up work on that stuff, and it's a pain in the butt to get it to look right. And you can't really do blending. It's a super secret art.
Right.
To try to blend that stuff.
You cannot blend it. I had what I called the run from hell right on the edge of the rear quarter panel and the door seam, and I didn't notice it until it was far too late. You can't blend it. Start over. You literally have to do it again because, like Jonathan says, what are you doing when you're blending? You're trying to sand down to get it to smooth out, but now all of a sudden you've got 3 different layers in there. And if you start with any one of them, it's going to be different. It's impossible. You cannot do it. I'm sure that there's some people out there that can, not this cat.
That's what I've been looking at new vehicles, and I actually go right to the paint code. If it says tri-coat, I won't buy it because I don't want to mess with trying to fix it later. So, Jesus, but the problem is I'm learning every car is tri-coat. So
how often do you stove your vehicles up, dude?
Well, I'm just saying things happen. I guess I'm too cheap to pay someone to do it. So, but that's why I learned about almost everything is a freaking tri-coat now. It's just like, wow, I didn't know that. So.
Yeah, that is a thing now.
Yeah, Mr. Akers asked, do I plan on painting this back to Flambeau Burgundy? Absolutely. We're going to go very original as the restoration.
That's going to be cool.
We have found that as the numbers matching transmission a couple weeks ago, stumbled upon that on accident. My dad acquired a 1968 Firebird 350 from a friend of ours, I guess a viewer had for sale. So it will have a 68 350 back to the 2-barrel carburetor even on top of that. So it's going to be a very original restoration, minus going to add vintage air, a little backup sensors on the back of the car because he's old and he doesn't have he called it the rubbernecking ability. Look over his shoulder. He wants backup beeper sensors in his car. And then we're going to put the turn signals in the mirrors. So we're going to put 2 mirrors on it. So, but other than that, it's going to look very, very original. He even have a set of the factory wire hubcaps that were on the old Firebirds. Love them or hate them is an expensive option. One of the most expensive wheel options. But nobody ever kept them. But he has a set for his car. So we're going to put those on it too. So it will definitely be a very original looking car.
I think my 67 Bird came with those wire wheels.
The hubcaps?
Really?
I remember seeing the PHS on that and like, really? But John Kilborn says power to ? Power to?
Oh, power top. Yeah, this is a power top car.
Okay, all right, power top. Okay.
Yep, it's going to be power top. We already got the pump lines and cylinders, so I just need a top frame that works. No big deal. The cylinder should work.
I just went through 4 weeks of fun with trying to put an aftermarket power top on. It was great.
Yeah. That's what I told my dad. I said, we got to buy a new top. You probably never put the top back up again. I'm not going to mess with it. So hopefully I can salvage it. That's my plan.
That's right. We spend a lot of time trying to, even the top itself, getting all the wrinkles out, making it just perfect, just to fold the damn thing up and leave it in the trunk the whole time.
I said, when do we ever put it up?
Yeah.
Leave it down.
You got to drive the top down. Hey.
Yeah, I know.
That's the whole point of a convertible, right?
That's it.
I love going topless. No brag.
Okay. All right. All right. So I was able to do some research this week for a trivia question.
Woo! Oh, we're about out of time. We're the time.
What's that?
We're about out of time. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Who won last week?
I'm trying to remember what Louis told me. Who won that? Don't remember. But I'm pretty sure
give him that prize.
Louis picked one. All right. So my question this week, or our trivia. The question is, what was the purpose of the Sprint option available on the 67, 68 Pontiac Firebird, and what made it different from the base inline 6 engine?
That sounds kind of a multi-part question. So you're saying what's the difference or what made it special?
Yep. So what? what was the purpose of it, and what made it different from the base inline 6? So if you guys think you know the answer, it's worth a t-shirt. Make your comment down below, and we'll find out. See, so Wilder says 4-barrel. John,
Richard's got it right. Yeah. Richard has it right. They had a different carburetor and different cam. So it was not only was it just a 4-barrel, but they actually changed the cam, did a little more lump out of it. So,
Actually, there's 4 things that separate it from the base. The Sprint had 4 things that made it different.
Oh, wow, he's going all the way there, huh? Well, yeah. See, now you're gonna get me in trouble.
So. Told you, I did some research this week.
Yeah. You did your homework. You'll make the smoke come out.
So while we wait for more, see if anybody gets all 4 items. Jonathan, did Pontiac do a 302 version for the Trans Am series like Chevrolet did?
You like this answer? Officially from the factory installed? No. Did they produce an engine? Yes. It was based off the Ram Air 5. It was a 303 cubic inch, super rare, but it was being designed for the Trans Am Racing Series. A few of them were made. They're floating out there. They're very, 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 very prized and very valuable engines. But the problem was the heads on the Ram Air 5 heads, if you're familiar with those, have like the big tunnel ports. I mean, massive ports in the heads.
Right.
Well, the 303 cubic inch just couldn't breathe enough to really benefit from those ports. Now, on a 400 or a 428, they did a fantastic job. But the 303, it just wasn't getting what they wanted out. And then, of course, you had the racing ban, which then killed everything at that point. So the Ram Air 5 version never made it underneath the hood from the factory, but they were working on it. So what typically happened was someone would take a Camaro 302 and then put the Firebird sheet metal on a Camaro, so they had their Trans Am, went around the Trans Am racing track. So.
Yeah, that was just a thought that came to me the other day. I was reading about the Chevrolet 302, and I was like, I wonder if Pontiac did that.
Yeah, they were working on it, so it's based off the Ram Air 5 engine. So.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I knew that one. I should use that for trivia. Hey, everybody remember that answer. We'll use this again later on.
Next week. We'll do that next week.
Next week. Yeah, let's see. Someone was asking the difference between a power and a manual top frame. They're definitely different. They're not interchangeable. They physically will bolt cylinders in. They will physically work the same as for if you want to manually move it with your hands. But the power top frame is, Mike did a side-by-side comparison. It's a nice example, but the hinge points are different positions for leverage for mechanical advantage. So you can put cylinders on a manual top frame, but it just doesn't work right. It's slow, or you got to nurse it up and down. It just doesn't operate. So you get those kits that we mentioned before. It says all you need to convert your car to a power top, and then in the super, super, super fine print, it needs power top frame too. Those little bastards.
Little asterisk right there, yeah.
The hinge points are at a different height, and it's all about the power tops. The hinge points are designed so that it pushes from the rear to pull it up, and with the manual top, it has to be pulled from the front. That's the ultimate difference, and it's subtle. I mean, you look at it, you're like, hey, these are the same, but you throw a rule on it, and there's almost an inch difference in heights of those hinge points.
Yeah, I have a manual top frame in my parts room, so I need to dig it out. And I don't know if any parts are any good on it, or I may salvage or cut it up for pieces. I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, I have that front bow and all that stuff ready to go to Louise for you too. So
nice. Yeah, cool.
And then I had a question this week come in.
Suck.
Someone emailed me. They got a 67 Bird, and I'm not sure if it's an original bumper or not, but they have aftermarket plastic grill inserts. And they're having a problem getting those grill inserts to gap correctly there at the nose of the beak. And I went and looked at mine, and I have a gap, and I think it's just how it is, unless you want to start going in there and cutting away and modding stuff. So that was my suggestion back to him.
Yeah, you'll never get them perfect. If you want a perfect fit, you better get that bumper re-chromed. It's going to have an edge. It's going to rust, and the chrome's going to peel. The factory bumpers, they're a lot closer tolerance. They look better. But an aftermarket or repop front bumper, the gap gets absolutely atrocious. It don't look fantastic. But what's the alternative? You know, you spend
Yep.
$2 or $3 grand to have your original one re-chrome. I don't know how much it costs now, but I wouldn't doubt it.
$800.
I have a re-chrome.
Yeah. I had a quote the
Wow.
other day because I have mine. I have the original one from this. I was going to have it re-chrome because I don't like the repop one. It's okay. It works okay, but it's not
Not what you like.
not what you want.
Now, where's this place for $800? So I can't find any place.
Pennsylvania.
It's Pennsylvania schmuck. Yeah,
I'll send you a link.
Pennsylvania schmuck. Yeah.
A friend of mine put me onto them.
Okay, Advanced Plating down, I think, in Tennessee or someplace down south, and they were like on a way long back list, and he was talking about $1,500. I'm like,
wow,
man.
And then, of course, still need to do shipping. So like that's $2,000 by the time I get done monkeying with shipping there and back, and then waiting for their time. And they were way backlogged. And I said, well, I bought a repop bumper and been super happy with the front one and the back one, but the pumpkin front bumper is decent, but it does have some goofy gaps on the grills, and I just not much I can do about it.
The good news is when it's on the road, you got to pretty much be standing on your head to see it. So.
Oh yeah, I mean we're being critical, but the details matter, you know. So we like all the little details. So.
Well, so far Gus has been the closest, but he's not quite 100%. So just leave that out there. And Gus has already won a shirt, so
he likes to play games though. It's cool. We like games.
Maybe I'll send him one of John's shirts.
Hey, that's the best shirt ever.
Very cool, guys. Any last minute tips or tricks for painting in your garage?
See, my dad used to tell me stories of the guys that would paint for a living, right? When they actually on the assembly line would actually use humans to paint, right? Now, after lunch, for some reason, they seem to do a better job of painting than before lunch. But there's a bar next door, They go over there and get all limbered up so they can be nice and they can flow a lot better. I'm not suggesting that you should drink, but I'm saying you might experiment with it if you're rigid with that paint gun. Maybe take the edge off. Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
a couple of these garage beers.
The old three martini paint job.
Yeah, and he just all of a sudden it just seems to go on so much better. The rhythm is nice, so I'm
loosen you up a little bit, right? So
right.
I
haven't tried it yet personally. I'm just saying I've been told the stories. So.
No,
Aye. All right, guys. I think we'll wrap it up for tonight.
Cool.
All right. Thanks for everybody for joining.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't forget to subscribe to Lake and Lodge. So
that's right. Make sure to go and subscribe to Mike's channel. We need to get him to that 1,000 number quick.
Yeah, there you go.
80 off?
What's that?
You have 80 more people to go before you hit 1,000?
Yeah, I think I'm at like 900 and something.
Okay, all right. Let's get you to 1,000.
Getting close. Getting close.
Make it happen.
Very cool. All right, kids. We will see you next Friday.
All right.
See you. All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye. Later.